The longer I'm in business, the more convinced I am that the most important and overlooked trait of character is integrity. Why this matters is if you don't have integrity, your life will never amount to what you hope it to be. People who think they can be one thing in public and then live a wild life in private never end up succeeding because your incredible skill set is never going to outpace your lack of character. And I feel it's so easy we can fall into this trap of trying to outpace our character with what society tells us. We have OnlyFans models on Instagram earning a side income while working a corporate job, or our OG celebrities of the 90s who have a lot of material success, even though they're completely integrated into Hollywood culture, hookups, all that kind of stuff. But the quiet part of that narrative is most of them end up losing their corporate jobs, their friends, and sometimes even their families. Their lack of character is always ends up catching up with them in one way or another. And the best thing about integrity is that it's a quality that has compounding effects because its very essence either builds or destroys trust. It will propel you in life because people know you're going to do what you say because you are who you say you are in all situations. And this makes your reputation your shortcut. So, what does that actually look like in your life, having your reputation be your shortcut? Well, it comes out in three ways, and we're going to dive into these three things. First, integrity is more important than talent. As I said earlier, your skills will never outpace your character. Employers, they don't want to have to worry about how their team is going to represent them when they're on a business trip, or wonder if they can depend on you to show up on time on Monday morning because you ended up losing control over your actions and behavior on the weekend. On the other hand, if you're an employee, you don't want to work for someone who is infamous in the community for poor character either. Business moves at the speed of trust. And to the extent the leader doesn't trust their team, or the team doesn't trust the leader, or the team doesn't trust any one person on the team, or any combination of these things, is the failure of the business. I once had a team member who was a habitual liar, and we discovered this because these weren't just cute white lies. This was like a no call, no show for 3 days straight. And then we asked him about it, and he made up a whole story about how his mom had passed away from cancer. And we all had compassion on him. We gathered around, supported him. We even took up a collection with multiple of our locations to support his finances and the burial costs of his mom. Strangely enough, though, no one was actually invited to the funeral. And a few weeks later, he was casually talking with some employees and talked about everything he did over the weekend with his mom. And then someone was really confused and asked him about his mom's death. And then he started, stuttering and backtracking. And he tried to change the timeline of the story to make it seem like this happened when his mom was alive. A week or so later, someone from his own church came and ratted him out. And then that ticked everyone on the team off. People stopped talking to him, they stopped working with him, and senior leadership eventually had to let him go. His lack of integrity cost the company a lot of money and missed productivity since no one would talk to him, work with him, or do anything around him. Secondly, integrity is less about public perception and more about private operation. Who you are when no one is watching is who you will be when someone is watching, because those are the habits that you're building in your life when no one's watching. People with high levels of integrity, they also have high levels of discipline. This is what sets them apart from the rest of the crowd. They do the work it takes day in and day out, not just in their character. They don't make decisions based on their mood of the day, nor will they wait till they feel motivated to start doing things. They have built consistent practices in their life for how they are going to operate. And this makes their behavior predictable to others. Let's give two examples. Let's say you had a boss who would have a different decision for the same problem each time you presented it based on their mood or the day or how their last phone call went. you would probably avoid going to them. Let's just be honest. You would probably just avoid going to them with problems and start losing respect that you may have had for them. Now, if you take that and turn it completely 180, imagine you had a boss, no matter the circumstance, always have the same response and would always give sound answers to any problem you had. You would probably end up making them your work bestie and go to them with everything. Even if they couldn't necessarily help you or solve that problem, you would go to them because you would trust their advice and their character. This is the manifestation of the compounding effect integrity has. So, what is the difference between those two bosses? One consistently works on how they respond to people, no matter if it's at work, home, or out with friends. They operate at a level of respect and the golden rule. And then the other one isn't thinking at all about how they come across and do not operate with the same level of integrity. And the third way this plays out is integrity is about having a healthy fear of God or authority. And I think this is one of the more self-explanatory ones. Because if you don't respect authority, then you ultimately don't think that there's anyone higher than you, and you pretty much act however you want. You can immediately tell who does and does not fear authority, at least to some extent. Not having respect for authority is the most obvious way to show a lack of integrity and the most widely used example. This is one of the most fundamental things we teach kids when they're learning how to operate and behave. Those that do not learn this, they often end up not living integrable lives and think they can do whatever they want to people. And people acknowledge they have no answer to a higher authority. Their behavior changes. Practicing disciplines of integrity is the fastest way to build success with people. Once you realize nothing good in life ever comes easy or quick, then you start the path that will get you there the most efficiently. Now, if you're struggling with living with integrity, here's what I would ask myself. I'd ask myself, what are my values? And what behaviors am I doing that need to change to the extent they don't align with my values? And then I would find someone that will love me enough to call me out when my actions are not aligning with my values I have claimed. Integrity bleeds into every area of your life, your team, your business. Imagine how different our communities would be, our families would be, our cities, our states, our country, if everyone lived with integrity in everything they said and did. My challenge to you is to start living a more integrable life. Find the gaps in your integrity and try to mend them to the best of your ability.